Language is full of quirks, mysteries, and hidden stories. Behind the simple phrases we toss around every day lie centuries of history, myth, and sometimes downright shocking origins. Today, we'll peel back the curtain on some of these expressions, and what you discover may surprise you. Let's start with the phrase, bite the bullet. Today, it means to bravely face something unpleasant or painful. But centuries ago, it had a far more literal meaning rooted in battlefield medicine. Before the development of reliable anesthetics, soldiers who needed surgery or amputation during combat had little more than a shot of liquor and a bullet to bite down on. The bullet wasn't just symbolic, it was a desperate tool to keep them from screaming or biting through their tongue while surgeons worked. This grim origin highlights the raw reality of pre-modern medicine, where pain was unavoidable and courage meant clamping down on a piece of lead. Over time, the phrase transformed into a metaphor for enduring hardship with resolve. Next up is, let the cat out of the bag. Today, it means revealing a secret, but its roots may lie in the bustling open-air markets of medieval Europe. Farmers would bring piglets to market, usually tied up in sacks. Dishonest vendors sometimes tried to trick buyers by slipping a less valuable animal, like a cat, into the bag instead. If the cat was accidentally released, the scam was exposed for all to see, hence letting the cat out of the bag. Not all historians agree on this origin, but the imagery fits perfectly. A hidden truth, revealed in an embarrassing burst. It's a reminder that our ancestors dealt with scams and schemes just as we do today. Now let's consider raining cats and dogs. This phrase paints an absurd picture of animals falling from the sky, but its origins may be found in the filthy streets of 17th and 18th century Europe. During heavy storms, poor drainage systems often washed away debris, and sometimes even the carcasses of animals that had died in the streets. To horrified onlookers, it looked as though the storm had rained down cats and dogs. Another theory connects the phrase to Norse mythology, where cats were linked to storms and dogs to wind. When tempests struck, people imagined both creatures battling it out in the heavens. Whether mythological or practical, the phrase raining cats and dogs shows how humans have always searched for vivid ways to describe the sheer power of nature. Our final phrase in this first section is, kick the bucket, a blunt way to say someone has died. The image seems silly at first, but its roots are sobering. One explanation points to the use of the word bucket in Middle English, which referred to a beam or yoke. When animals were slaughtered, they were hung from such beams and often kicked violently as life left them. Over time, the phrase became a euphemism for human death, its grim imagery softened by casual everyday use. Let's dive into the phrase rule of thumb. Today, it simply means a rough estimate, but its history has often been clouded by a darker interpretation. Some have claimed it comes from an Old English law that allowed a man to beat his wife with a stick no thicker than his thumb. However, historians note there's no solid evidence such a law ever existed. Instead, the phrase most likely arose from tradesmen, such as carpenters and brewers, who used their thumbs as a handy measuring tool before standardized rulers were common. The thumb gave a quick, practical guide, hence the rule of thumb. Another curious expression is by and large. We use it to mean in general, but it comes from the world of sailing in the 16th century. Sailors used by to describe sailing into the wind and large for sailing with the wind at your back. A ship that could handle both by and large was considered versatile and seaworthy. Over time, the phrase drifted into everyday speech. Now let's look at close but no cigar. Today it's used when someone nearly succeeds but just misses. Its roots lie in 19th century carnival games in America. Back then, cigars were often given out as prizes for winning games of skill. like knocking down bottles. If you came close but didn't quite win, the carnival barker would shout, "Close but no cigar!" A taunt that stuck in popular culture. Another phrase with a surprising background is, butter someone up. Today, it means to flatter, but its history is tied to an ancient religious ritual. In India, it was once common to throw balls of clarified butter, or ghee, at statues of the gods to seek favor. This act of literally buttering up the deities evolved into the figurative sense of flattering someone for personal gain. Equally intriguing is the expression, under the weather. We use it when feeling unwell, but it originally belonged to sailors braving rough seas. When conditions worsened, sick sailors were sent below deck, literally under the weather, to recover. The phrase eventually became a universal way to describe illness or fatigue, even on dry land. Finally, consider sleep tight. Today it's a cozy bedtime wish, but its origin lies in the construction of beds in the 16th and 17th centuries. Back then, mattresses rested on a crisscross of ropes. To ensure a firm, comfortable surface, the ropes had to be pulled tight. Saying "sleep tight" was both practical advice and a kind blessing for a restful night. Next on our journey is the phrase, "cut to the chase." Today, it means to get straight to the point, but its beginnings are tied to early Hollywood filmmaking. Silent films in the early 20th century often featured long stretches of dialogue cards and slow build-up. Eventually, impatient audiences wanted the action scenes, the chases. Editors and directors began telling writers to cut to the chase, and the phrase stuck as shorthand for skipping unnecessary details. Now let's explore break the ice. Today, it's used to describe easing tension in a social situation, but its origin is quite literal. In Northern Europe, rivers and harbors often froze over during winter, halting trade and travel. Special ships known as icebreakers would carve paths through the frozen waters, allowing commerce and communication to continue. The phrase eventually evolved into a metaphor for overcoming social barriers. Another fascinating saying is, "read the riot act." When we use it today, it means a stern warning, but its roots are found in English law. In 1714, Britain passed the Riot Act, which gave authorities the power to disperse gatherings of 12 or more people deemed unlawful. Officials would literally read aloud a section of the act, warning the crowd to leave. Failure to disperse within an hour could lead to arrest, or worse. This stern declaration entered everyday language as reading the Riot Act, now meaning a serious scolding or warning. Then we have saved face or losing face. These phrases about dignity and honor trace their roots to Chinese culture, where face represented a person's reputation and social standing. To lose face meant public embarrassment or dishonor, while saving face referred to preserving dignity in difficult situations. Western travelers adopted the expression in the 19th century, and it spread globally as a universal concept. Next comes turn a blind eye. This phrase suggests deliberately ignoring something, and it connects to one of Britain's most famous naval heroes, Admiral Horatio Nelson. During the Battle of Copenhagen in 1801, Nelson reportedly received a signal from his superior to retreat. But Nelson, blind in one eye, raised his telescope to the blinded side and declared he could not see the signal. He went on to press the attack, securing victory. Whether embellished or not, this story cemented the phrase, "turn a blind eye," as a way of willfully ignoring inconvenient facts. Our last phrase for this section is pull out all the stops. Today, it means to give maximum effort, but its origin lies in the world of church organs. Pipe organs have stops that control airflow and sound. When an organist pulled out all the stops, the instrument produced its loudest, most powerful music. The phrase became a metaphor for unleashing full energy or resources in any endeavor. Let's begin this final section with the phrase, head over heels. Today it describes being deeply in love, but originally it had an entirely different meaning. In the 14th century, the phrase was actually heels over head, used to describe someone tumbling or being turned upside down. Over time, the order of the words flipped, and by the 18th century, it took on the romantic sense we use today. Another expression we often hear is butterfingers. It's used for someone clumsy, but its roots trace back to 17th century England. The term was first popularized by the poet Alexander Pope in 1712, who used it to mock someone dropping things as though their fingers were slick with butter. The image was so vivid that butterfingers has stuck ever since. Now let's turn to cost an arm and a leg. This phrase suggests something very expensive, but surprisingly, it doesn't come from wartime amputations as many believe. The likely origin is from 18th and 19th century portrait painting. Full-body portraits, showing arms and legs, were more expensive because they required more time and effort. A simple head and shoulders portrait was far cheaper, so showing all limbs could quite literally cost an arm and a leg. Another striking phrase is, "go the whole 9 yards." Today, it means giving your all, but its true beginnings are debated. One strong theory ties it to World War II fighter planes, which carried ammunition belts that were 27 feet long, exactly 9 yards. To give them the whole 9 yards meant unleashing every bullet. Next comes wild goose chase. We use it for a pointless pursuit, but it originally referred to an actual type of horse race in 16th century England. In these races, one horse led while the others had to follow in formation, like geese in flight. If the lead horse darted off unpredictably, the others had to chase in a chaotic scramble. Shakespeare himself used the term, cementing its figurative meaning. Then we have bury the hatchet. Today, it means to make peace, but its origin comes from Native American traditions. Among certain tribes, particularly the Iroquois, burying a hatchet literally symbolized ending conflict. Weapons were placed underground during peace negotiations, a powerful act that has carried into modern language as a universal symbol of reconciliation. And with that, we've uncovered the strange, sometimes dark, but always fascinating stories behind the words we speak every day. If you enjoyed this journey into the hidden past of language, don't forget to subscribe to the Silent Lodge and join us for more captivating explorations. Until next time.